Well, good morning, evening, afternoon. It's 1:11 p.m. afternoon, my time, and this will be the video for the 13th of November, even though it's being recorded on the 12th of November, 12 hours after I started the last video. No, I'm not going to be interviewing Karen Hudas today. She was willing, but it might have had to be broken up into a couple of pieces, and because of other things in her schedule, she would have had to do it in two parts, and I'd rather do it all at once and be done with it rather than do it in two parts. So anyway, that's scheduled for tomorrow. So the video for Thursday will be with an interview with Karen Hudas. And I have some questions I want to ask her in regard to the world trusts, which is also what I'm talking about today. Release of global trusts ends cabal control. That's my title. And my blurb goes like this. I listened to a Sacha Stone interview regarding the New Earth project a while ago, and it started the wheels turning in my mind. He made a statement in regard to existing organizations not being allowed to be involved in the restructuring of society on Earth. I like a lot of what he had to say, and he mentioned Foster Gamble and Michael Tellinger in the interview, both of whom I greatly respect, as I do Sacha Stone himself. Let me say, however, that I have a slightly different take on existing organizations. As usual for me, I see bridges, not walls. Frankly, I want the UN involved in the restructuring and repurposing of our institutions. I want the involvement of our military. I want as many involved as possible. But what I want most is the release of the world trust funds to the people of the world. Once that happens, there can be no more cabal control, which depends, first and foremost, on them controlling the flow of currency. When they lose that, people are empowered and enriched. I forgot a letter. Let me type that in there. And the cabal will have to work on a level playing field for the first time. You know, I believe the World Trust is the first knowledge that I had that World Trusts existed was the Saint Germain World Trust. When I started reading about that and learning about that, and I believe he was probably the one, at least in the modern era of humanity, that was responsible for setting up the concept of a world trust, which was created to bless humanity. And I believe those trusts, and I believe there's more than one, were created to bring us into the kingdom of heaven on earth, into manifestation. They were to be the bridge of enrichment and empowerment to take us from the crazy world that we all were born into, where we are born as slaves and we're living in a world of fraud and corruption in which human rights are scoffed at. They're given lip service to, but scoffed at in reality. Nobody's rights are honored in the Matrix. We all see that. We all see what's happening as the Matrix is threatened by people waking up. They seem to be going in the wrong direction. Actually, what's happening is it's being revealed. So we're now seeing things that were happening all along, but we're seeing it and it's being put out there so that we're more aware of it, and it seems like it's increasing. Actually, it's not. We just were ignorant of what was going on before. I don't really know that it's increasing all that much. It's simply more obvious. That's all. It's more obvious than it was before. Now, because of the internet, the knowledge gap between what's happening and people realizing what's happening is much narrower. You know, it took students of history to look back and see some of the mistakes that were made in bygone generations. It took a generation or two ahead to even see what was going on in the generations before them. That doesn't happen anymore. Now it's instantaneous. But Saint Germain, to me, is a real being. I know there's a myth. I know there's legend. But I believe he's real. I believe Jesus is real. I believe that all of these, quote, mythological characters are actually real characters that have played a part in the history and in the unfolding of world civilization, if you want to call what we've done before civilization. Yeah, I call it uncivilization because it's insane. But we didn't know it was insane. It built what we had and brought us to the point that we're at now, where we can look at all this and we can gain wisdom from it. Now, I do believe that the world trusts are being stopped by the Cabal for one simple reason. They know what I've just said in the title of this and what I said in the blurb. If you start giving people abundance and there's no more lack consciousness, you've now empowered people to make their own decisions and to do what they want with their lives. Us, yeah, us. We can do what we want with our lives if we're enriched, because enrichment and empowerment are equal. If we're enriched because we now have the substance to accomplish what we could not accomplish before. We always had our hand out begging or borrowing or stealing. What happens if there's no more reason to beg, borrow, or steal? What happens if that's all washed away and we no longer have that dynamic at play in our culture? Do you think the culture might just change? Do you think that the elite don't know that? Do you think that they don't know that they will no longer be able to exercise blind obedience and control over the population of the world, making the world think that they have the wealth and it belongs to them, and if we want any, we've got to depend on their generosity? If the world trusts are released, we don't have to depend on their false generosity anymore, which was never generosity to begin with. It was a control mechanism. I would like to see everybody in the world included in the distribution of the world trusts. Everybody, with no one in control, or at least not for very long. Maybe a very short gap to make sure that it gets to where it's supposed to go, with military enforcement to block anybody that tries to keep it from getting where it's going to go. There's been lots of foreign aid that's gone to the various third world countries from the so-called first world countries that never reaches the people. So the most important thing in the releasing of the global trusts or the world trusts is to make sure that it gets to all the people, that all the people ultimately end up being blessed, that the education is such that people are taught that with this abundance comes responsibility. Mainly that we are part of a society. It's not about now you've got everything you need so you don't have to work. No, everybody still has to contribute to the necessities of society. Really, really basic importance on that level. We have to know that that's what we have to do. We have to serve one another. We each have to play our part, or otherwise the whole society breaks down. We don't want that to happen. We don't want it to be chaotic. We want it to be ordered. And in order for it to be ordered, there still has to be some structure in place to make sure that things get where they're going to go and to accelerate the evolution of consciousness, which will happen automatically when people are finally told the truth and all the bullshit is revealed of the system that we've been living under and how the matrix had worked and why it created all of the problems that we face on our planet. See, all we need to do, as I see it, it's not going out and building all these communities that are disconnected from everything. My vision is everything is connected. Everything. And all works through the structures that we already have in place. We just repurpose them. We just give them a different game plan, different instructions on how to operate, and different rules that they have to honor. They cannot any longer, if they're going to get their funding from the World Trust, they're going to have to understand that it's not every man for himself. It's all of us for each other. It's cooperation. The whole model, the whole paradigm depends on cooperation. Competition, other than in gaming, and by gaming I mean sports and things like that, I think that's a healthy competition. I don't know that we have to eliminate sports from our social structure, although there's some sports that I wouldn't mind seeing disappear, like cockfighting and other things like that, and bullfighting, and where they hurt animals, or anyway, I don't even want to get into that. I just did a little bit, but I'm going to let it go. We need, though, to learn that cooperation is the biggie. That's the big paradigm shift, that we need to serve one another. That's what cooperation really is. We need to listen and we need to serve. We need to hear what the other people are saying. We need to learn how to communicate compassionately, effectively with each other. We need to learn the art of give and take. We need to bend. It's not about me having my own way and somebody else having their own way, and it's certainly not about the elite having their own way. But we don't want to destroy the elite. They're human beings. All I want, is for them to wake up. And that's sufficient, because that creates the objective. The objective is not to punish people for doing things that were bad. That's never the objective. The objective is to bring everybody home so that we can start working together for the common good of all people, rather than a minority stealing from everybody else. That's the system that we have. Everything is a fraud. Everything is inside out and upside down and backwards. Everything is screwed up. Everything is insane, psychopathic, sociopathic, because that's the energy of the people that we've allowed to rise to the top, which in effect is to wake us up, because we wouldn't have awakened any other way. It advances and accelerates the evolution of our consciousness, which is the only thing that really evolves. We evolve in consciousness, and as our consciousness expands, our possibilities expand, and we change. We transform, literally, from the inside out. But it starts with being aware of the truth of what is. You don't start with a vision of what you want to be. You start with a vision of what is, a knowledge of what is. And then you apply that to the vision of where you want to go, and you build bridges. That's called processing. You're processing from where you are to where you want to go. You're walking, you're moving. You're not just taking a giant leap. You're not just jumping over a whole bunch of impossible not caverns, chasms. You're actually moving, and as you walk, you build the bridge to tomorrow from today. But you can't get to tomorrow from tomorrow because you're not in tomorrow yet. That's the beauty of time. They say, well, time's not going to happen anymore. Well, if time stops, so does evolution. If evolution stops, so does life. So this idea of time shall be no more, I don't have a concept for that. I don't see how that can work in life, only in death. Death would stop time. Time shall be no more if everything is eradicated, if nothing else exists. But as long as there are sequencing of events, there is time, because sequence of events require time, the passage of time. I don't understand completely how we can be in the past, present, and future in the same time, although I do believe that's probably possible. But the most important thing, as I said in my blurb, is to release our inheritance. It's ours to release our birthright to the people, to all the people, to level the playing field. When you level the playing field, the institutions will automatically go through transformation. They will automatically change. There's nothing wrong with the institutions if they were set on cooperation instead of competition, if they were set on creating liberty and freedom instead of control, if they were set on telling the truth instead of lying, if they were set on showing compassion instead of producing guilt and shame. Almost all problems that I see in the world can be quickly addressed once we recognize and experience for ourselves that we are each rich beyond belief. And knowing that, we are powerful. We are empowered to serve. And that's the key. Not empowered to control, but empowered to serve one another. Hence, you shall know them because they love one another. Let us all love each other. Thank you for listening. Namaste.